to attach the spare wheels to the frame, and they're going to attach just in front of the lights, like probably behind the rear shackle, but in front of this little piece of framework here where the light is. I need some bolts. Now, my dad had in a bucket these rusted old things that were cut off of the hub that they used to be on. So, what I've been doing with them, this one won't come off, but I got 5 and I only need 4. What I've been doing is grinding the threads flat. You see what I've done there. And then clamping it down here in the vise, and then hitting it with my air ratchet, which did the trick for the first 2, and then it would not, it just wouldn't work on this one. This is the 3rd of 5. And I didn't even grind this much. I only did like 3 threads, and then kept going, and you can see the first pass. That's the first and second pass. You can see where it's split. So I then just grinded way up the side to give myself more contact area, and then my air ratchet just sits there doing nothing until the compressor comes on. So I don't think I'm doing any harm to it, because I hardly use the thing ever, and it's pretty much in new condition, and I oil it every time I use it like you're supposed to. So there you go. Anyways, we're gonna have to toss and bury this one. It's what cold welded on there, permanent. But as long as I can get the last 2 to go, I got the very last one. It's prepared and just sitting here soaking in a little bit of kerosene, and it hasn't got far to go either. So I'm really quite counting on these last 2 working out for me. Then I'll have 4 perfectly good nuts. I was going to use the threads, but I'm not going to anymore. And then I've got bolts that I'm going to weld to the little T-shapes, and just 2 bolts per wheel is good enough. They're just mounted for convenience on the side of the trailer frame. So here we go. Let's get these last guy separated. So here's the idea for the spare wheel mounts. What I'm doing is grinding the metal away on these chunks of pipe. So I've got a gap of about, I think it's 3 3/8, so that I get 4 inches on center, which is what these hubs are. I'm inserting the bolts inside the pipe itself, or the square tube rather, with a nut on it, because it just seems to fit really nicely. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with this 4th one, because that's one of the stud bolts. I was able to reclaim the threads on it. It saves me cutting up that perfectly good carriage bolt that you may have saw laying on the ground. Anyway, okay, that was the air compressor rather. I'm done with the ratchet, so I don't need that. So I put the bolts in with a nut threaded all the way to the top, and it just seems to fit really nicely. And then I thread these wheel stud bolts, which are the sort of rounded off hardened steel type, and that centers them nicely and aligns the bolts nice, so that I can just hit these with the welder, wait for them to cool and tack around them and stuff. I don't want to wreck the powder coat on the rim though, so I'm not sure exactly what I'll do. Maybe put a lot of tape on it or something. But I've still got to grind this, and I'm just doing it by hand, so it's not exactly a precision job, but it doesn't have to be once you weld the bolt to the pipe. As long as the 2 bolts are straight, and the wheel is going to ensure me of that. Then I've got all these chain links that I cut off one at a time, and I'm going to weld them. I've got 8 of them, and I'm going to weld them around the frame along the sides, sort of more towards the front. And those are where the hooks for your ratchet straps are going to go. So I've just got a couple more things to weld on, these and these chain links, and then we're done. Oh yeah, and this has to sort of, probably too close. So I'm going to have to figure out exactly what distance I want them to stick out. I don't want the tire to touch the frame of the trailer, but I also don't want them sticking out too far. So I'll just find a nice number, nice distance, find another piece of metal that I can cut, and they're just going to weld onto the frame. And these aren't really going to be load bearing, just sufficient to hold some spare tires, because you never know when you're going to need a spare tire. if it isn't obvious what I've done here, the white line that you can see left to right is just a big strip of cardboard that represents the line of the ground, because this is upside down at the moment, when the trailer is open, sort of touching the ground at the back. So the ground makes a line. I've done this before to figure out how far down I can put the light without the light hitting the ground, but now what I want is where can I put the rear wheels where they will just touch the ground when the trailer is in the loading position, but obviously not touch the ground at all when the trailer is moving. So you can tell the straight line of like road travel is basically that, although flip it. So you can see that the white rim is sticking up quite a bit higher than the gray rim, up being that way. And the other thing I was slightly concerned about is not obstructing the view of the suspension shackles, because the Ministry of Transport people are going to want to see that if they should ever think that I'm hiding them for a reason, because this is an awkward or just uncommon spot for mounting spare tires. I don't want them to think that I'm in any way trying to be elusive. So there we go. I got to weld these little mounts on where I've got them sort of temporarily put, and then I got to mount a weld on all those little chain link things, and these are only tack welded, my wheel mounts, but I just got to finish up the welds on those. Here's the tire mount in place. So all I've done here is just welded the nut bolt through that little hole, and I've got these sort of rounded hub nuts to work with, and I've just now done this here weld. So once we get a little further with the cleanup, we'll be ready to paint. Just sort of grinding off the weld yuckiness. And I also welded these guys on. There's going to be a bunch of cleanup to do with them because they weren't particularly clean, but I'm satisfied that they're strong because I kind of over welded them. Piled up a lot of steel in there. Looks like I stuck them on with chewed up bubble gum. But anyway, I'll sort of grind them to look a little smoother and nicer. But these are all chain links every 17 inches, which will give us something nice to hook on to. And that distance isn't too specific, other than every 17 inches you get a chain link until you hit this thing, which is equally good for strapping something onto if you're just going to wrap a hook around it. That'll work fine. And then you've also got these light mounts, although I doubt I'll be using them because I won't be tying a lot of things on at the back of the trailer. I'm more likely to tie it between the axle and the front, depending on, you know, weight distribution. Anyway, so that's it. Little more cleanup to do, and we're good. Oh, I'll show you this too. I've welded a link onto the tongue here, and I've got a bit of chain, and this is going to attach to this friendly little dude. I've welded the last bits onto this thing. The license plate, I'm not sure if I want it in the middle of the back, which I don't have a light for it, or if I want it on the under the light, you know, where it hangs under the brake light. So I put little chain links in both places so I can move it back and forth. I can change my mind later. That didn't really add a lot of weight. I also added these things. These are going to be what my fenders hang from, and the fender material is going to be this little crazy carpet. So just 2 strips of black plastic that I'm going to attach with little nuts and bolts. And that's it. Oh, and I put these little angle iron bits with a hole drilled in them, and there's 8 of those, so 2 on each of the spars, or whatever you want to call them. And I have them lined up straight to show you why I have this clamped bar here. That's just giving me a nice straight line and a support to make sure that when I weld these things on, that I'm welding them on level. So I have surface to bolt the wooden deck to, and for mounting my fenders to. Those are the new parts here, and for my license plate. So this is everything I need, a little bit of cleanup, and then we paint.